morning. Hopefully everyone is doing well. I know that we were looking forward to getting some snow, as this is recorded prior to the snow coming. I don't know exactly how much we are going to get and if we got as much as we were supposed to or not. Today we're going to continue our inadequate series as we look at the 10 spies today. I've been trying to look at different people, maybe some people that we haven't ever really thought about in regards to our series being inadequate. And so I'm going to be looking at the 10 spies today as we look forward to this different study. You know, I know that when God asks me to go somewhere or He challenges me to do something, sometimes I can be a little bit timid to do that. Sometimes I can even be intimidated to do that, specifically if I know anything about the situation. You know, last week or so that we looked at Paul, and we looked at how Ananias was a little bit apprehensive about going and helping out Paul. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. The idea of like whenever you know something about the situation ahead of time, you sometimes are a little bit apprehensive about things. But I do believe that there is times in which God is wanting me to go somewhere in order to kind of see the possibilities, see what He might do. It may not be exactly at that time, but as we look at the idea of the spies, they were going into a land to look at it. And so I think there are times that we may be doing the same thing, that God may be wanting us to see things, that He may be preparing us for the future. It may be somewhere that we're going to be spending some different times at. Maybe it's involved with a certain group of people, like socially, it could be with some people that we are working with or other people that we're going to be hanging around. But I think, you know, I would love to be able to see His plan every time when it comes to what He wants for me. And I think that you would probably agree that for you also. You know, we can all become mentally distracted at times. You know, sometimes we call that the idea of a mental block, that you are wanting to do something so bad, but yet your mind just really plays tricks on you, doesn't really allow you to do what you need to do. And so you have a hard time getting over it. Now, other times we might be calling it the idea of psyched out, because we're just psyched out. We're not able to overcome that mental issues that's going on. I know my daughter has some difficult time with that when she's been doing some different tumbling skills. And I know if I was in that same boat, I probably would too. Maybe she got it from me a little bit. I know it took a lot of time for me whenever I was swimming to get over some different mental blocks, like doing a flip or even diving off the diving board for the first time when I was young. But once you get it and once you get through that, then it can be a lot easier. But the idea that when we are thinking about those mental blocks or thinking about being psyched out, that's really all about our inadequacies, us being inadequate and not thinking about the fact that we are in the position to be adequate, that we could very well easily see that God is with us and that we are able to be in that position to be adequate. Keep in mind our text for this particular series, the first, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, 4 through 6, and specifically in verse 5, and it says, "Now we have such confidence in God through Christ, not that we are adequate in ourselves to consider anything as if it were coming from ourselves, but our adequacy is from God, who made us adequate to be servants of a new covenant." Now, I've loved that, and I've loved to repeat that because I want you as a hearer to understand that. Whether it's the first time you've heard that, or maybe this is the 6th time you've heard that, the idea that you understand that no matter what inadequacies we may have, we are adequate with God, and our adequacy does come from God. So let's get into this week's lesson in regards to the 10 spies. We're going to be looking at Numbers chapter 13. We'll be looking at the first 3 verses, and then we're going to skip all the way down to 17 and going through the first part of 21. And it says this, "The Lord spoke to Moses, 'Send out men to investigate the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. You are to send one man from each ancestral tribe, each one a leader from among them.' So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran at the command of the Lord. All of them were leaders of the Israelites. When Moses sent them to investigate the land of Canaan, he told them, 'Go up through the Negev, and then go up into the hill country, and see what the land is like, and whether the people who live in it are strong or weak, few or many, and whether the land they live in is good or bad, and whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or fortified cities, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether or not there are forests in it, and be brave, and bring back some of the fruit of the land." Now it was the time of the year for the first ripe grapes. So they went up, and they investigated the land. Now God tells Moses to send out spies. He tells him to send out these spies to the land in which they were going to be heading into shortly, relatively speaking. And he sends out one from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, he probably did that a little bit for a couple reasons. I know God told him that was obvious. That's obvious as one reason, but maybe God had in mind the idea that, wanting to have one from each to have a little bit of a different perspective from each of those tribes. Also, maybe a little bit of fairness as far as an even amount from each of the 12 tribes versus a 1 or 2 from one tribe and maybe 0 from another. The idea of a little bit even distribution of all the 12 tribes. But it gives them a list in verses 4 through 6, which we didn't read. But Moses gives them instructions of what to look for. They're to look for the idea of safety, the soil, the richness of the soil, the topography of the land, and it mentions towards the end about the idea of grapes. I think it kind of helps the readers know about what time this is going about, and it also is helping them to understand what to look for, the idea that grapes are going to be around in regards to the fruit. This, according to what I looked up, could have been anywhere between June and September, and because this is the first of the grapes, then it's probably in that June-July time, around that time in which they were going into it. But I feel that God sometimes is sending us constantly to people, to be looking out to see what we can do, to see how we can impact people. There may be times in which God wants us to go into a land ahead of time. I mentioned that a little bit in the introduction. He wants us to go into a land ahead of time to kind of view the land, to see what we're going to be able to do, maybe to see how our talents are going to play out, to be able to help them and to be able to help the situation that's there. But the question may be, how do we come out of the land? In other words, when we come out of the land, what is our perspective of the land, or whenever we go into a situation? Are we going to be anything like these 12 spies? So let's continue on in Numbers chapter 13, now looking at 26 through 33. And it says, "They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole community of the Israelites in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They reported to the whole community and showed the fruit of the land. They told Moses, 'We went to the land where you sent us. It is indeed flowing with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the inhabitants are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negev, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan.' Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses, saying, 'Let us go up and occupy it, for we are well able to conquer it.' But the men who had gone with him had said, 'We're not able to go against these people because they are stronger than we are.' Then they presented the Israelites with a discouraging report of the land they had investigated, saying, 'The land that we passed through to investigate is a land that devours its inhabitants. All the people we saw there are of great stature. We even saw Nephilim there.' The descendants of Anak came from Nephilim. 'And we seemed like grasshoppers, both to ourselves and to them.' So after 40 days of being away, that was mentioned previously, that they were there for 40 days, they returned to camp. And their reports are this: what's flowing with milk and honey, it's rich in soil, it has a lot of fruit, but the inhabitants are strong, the cities are fortified and large, and their descendants of Anak and other groups live there too." Now if you look through that list or think about that list, within these 40 days they came up with all this to share, and they had 2 good things before the rest was a little bit on the negative or seemingly on the negative side. It kind of shifts gears with the idea of the conjunction but. These different things, it has this and this and this. Hey, that sounds great. But, and then they go into the negative. They go into the other side of it. No matter how many positives, that negative stands out. Think about that for your own self. If somebody said, or if I was saying a report about how good a restaurant was, and then I stopped and said, but, and started to say a few bad things about it. Those bad things for us, at least in our culture, or for us as humans, tend to stand out more so than anything else. those would be more significant to us. I know that for me anyway, and I know that's the way for a lot of people. If somebody were to talk about a movie that maybe my kids were going to watch, and they would say, well, it has this and this and this. Hey, that sounds good. But, and then it was talking about something else, I would be really thinking those weigh heavily more than those good things do. Or maybe it might be another situation that you're in. Maybe it's somebody that you're wanting to be around, as far as, they have this quality, this quality, this quality, but, and then they have these things. Maybe it's somebody that you're thinking about hiring or somewhere along those lines. But those negatives tend to stand out. No matter how many positives there are, those negatives tend to stand out to us. That conjunction but kind of shifts us as a hearer, our minds, to think about something else. Even if you would reverse the order, it would be hard to really think about those negative things. But when we do look at a situation, we see the majority of it being negative almost no matter how many positives there are. And to have something good said about you, but then a conjunction of the word but is in there, it can have an issue because we tend to think about that negative. I wonder how many days into this 40 that they were thinking about the negative. I wonder if any of them were thinking about 3 days into it, or a few days, a week into it, that after they had seen the different situations, the different people, maybe some other different things that they talk about, if they were automatically thinking, well, this isn't for us. This is not for us, that we should not be in this land as a people. We're maybe surviving, or as the 12 of us, but as a people, we should not be in this. They continued with all these discouraging things, as the text talked about, the idea of this discouraging report, what the land and what it had in there. To have this inadequate attitude, they were generally looking at themselves. They weren't looking to God. They were looking at what they could do. They were looking at how small they were. They were looking at how inadequate they were, and not to themselves, or not to what God was going to be able to do. Not the idea that they were now in a position to be adequate. Let's continue on now. As we look in the next chapter, Numbers 14, we're going to be going through 1 through 9, and then going down to 11 through 20. It says, then all the community raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the Israelites murmured against Moses and Aaron. And the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if we had perished in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us into this land only to be killed by the sword, that our wives and our children should become plunder? Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let's appoint a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell down with their faces to the ground before the whole assembled community of the Israelites. And Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, 2 of those who had investigated the land, tore their garments. They said to the whole community of Israelites, the land we passed through to investigate is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that is flowing with milk and honey. Only do we not rebel against the Lord and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection has turned aside from them. But the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. The Lord said to Moses, how long will this people despise me, and how long will they not believe in me, in spite of the signs that I have done among them? I will strike them with the pestilence, and I will disinherit them. I will make you into a nation that is greater and mightier than they. Moses said to the Lord, when the Egyptians hear, for you brought us up out this people by your power from among them, then they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among this people, that you, Lord, have seen face to face, that your cloud stands over them, and that you go before them by day in a pillar of cloud and in a pillar of fire by night. If you kill this entire people at once, then the nations that have heard of your fame will say, because the Lord was not able to bring this people into the land that he swore to them, he killed them in the wilderness. So now, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have said. The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in loyal love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, until the 3rd and 4th generations. Please forgive the iniquity of this people according to your great loyal love, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now." Then the Lord said, "I have forgiven them as you asked." As a result of their inadequacies, they cry out and they murmur to Moses about why they're out here. They want a mutiny and they want a leader to take them back to Egypt. They don't want Aaron and Moses anymore. This bothered Moses and Aaron so much that they just bowed their face to the ground and cried out. And they appeal to God while Joshua and Caleb, they tear their clothes. Joshua and Caleb were one of the 12 that went over. So 10 others were the ones that were causing all the problems, that were causing all the negatives. Again, it goes back to that idea that the negative stands out. These 2 positives really didn't stand out among all the 10 negative, discouraging reports that were coming about. And so they try to reassure the people that God is going to take care of them. And God speaks to Moses that he's going to punish the Israelites. What a discouraging thing to think that God was going to be doing that to the people. But Moses appeals to God on their behalf. He begs God to not do that. To say, hey, don't take their lives. Don't do this. I want you to take care of them just like you always have. And in verse 20, we saw that God forgives them. God is an awesome God. He is slow to anger, as it talks about within that text that we read. It's great to have an advocate like Moses. And for us, as Christians, we have an advocate, Jesus Christ. He's our advocate. He's our one who talks to God even when we're messing up, or even when we're not able to comprehend what we need to be saying. We have the Holy Spirit and Jesus to be able to do those kinds of things, to be able to communicate to God on our behalf. And so luckily, as a Christian, we have that benefit. They are inadequate. They are in the position to be adequate, even though they don't know it. They have God on their side, even though the circumstances around them are not going very well. The same goes for us. Even when the circumstances seem to be piling in on us, whether it's our health, whether it's something else that's going on, whether it's our friends, whether it's our job, no matter what it is, when things are just seeming to be imploding or just coming in and piling up on us, we still have God with us. No matter what happens, He's always there for us. And He's always there with us. We have that inadequate aspect. We can have that position to be adequate if we just reach out and use it on a daily basis. He is there for us. And so for us, when we are not thinking that we are inadequate, it is because our faith is weakened. That's why this series is so important, is to make sure that our faith is strong, that we understand that we are in the position to be adequate, that we are inadequate. You have amazing opportunity to spend time with God, to team up with God in the situations that may come your way. Whether they seem impossible or not, you are now in that position to be adequate. We may have mental blocks in real life. We may have times in which that we may think, I just can't do it, God. I just can't do it. But then we think about it, and we have to really remember the fact that God is there with us. And so may God help us to be able to get over those blocks that we have in life. And may it be times in which we have those doubts and inadequacies that we can be able to turn to Him. Turn to Him and know that we are in that position to be adequate. That's such a great reminder. The 10 spies that were negative, they forgot about the fact that they are with God. And so let's not be like the 10 spies. Let's have that encouraging time like Caleb and Joshua that said, we can do it. When you go out this week, when you go out into the world, know that you can do it. Know that God is there with you. Even if it's an impossible situation or a seemingly impossible situation, God is going to be there with you. You are inadequate. Praise God for that. Have a great week, and I hope you stay safe, and I know it's going to get warmer if you're around here. God bless, and thanks for watching, and have a great week.